All right, it looks like we have a fair number of folks on now, so we may as well get started. I think a couple more people will probably jump on as we're going. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today for the Video Production 101 workshop. I'm Ryan with the Lake Champlain Basin program. I'm really excited to be here today with Vince Frankie of Peregrine Productions, and I'll do a little bit more of an intro for Vince in just a minute, but I wanted to touch on a couple things related to the workshop format and the webinar today. So first of all, actually, sorry for the last minute switch from GoToMeeting to Zoom. We did a little testing on Friday and over the weekend and just felt like this was a better way to go. So hopefully everybody was able to change course without too much trouble. It looks like most people have landed here, so that's great. We have pretty good numbers, so we're super excited about that. So again, just to review kind of the format of the workshops we're going to do. So today is just generally an introductory session. Vince is going to be presenting on a number of different things. And we decided to use more of the webinar format today rather than a standard Zoom meeting format, just because it's, I think, a little bit easier. There won't be a whole lot of interaction anyway, but there will be opportunity to ask questions through the Q&A feature of Zoom. We will be doing the 3 follow-up question and answer workshops. Those will probably use the standard Zoom meeting format so that we can see and hear from everybody and just be able to have a little bit more interaction. First of those will be on Wednesday at 1 to 3. I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to send out the invitations for those yet, but I will do that later today. I will move my video so that I'm actually looking at everybody as I'm talking. The other workshops will be in the weeks following. Again, I'll send invitations out for each of those so everybody will know when they are scheduled for those. And I'll do my best to get everybody's first choice and a priority for those. As far as today, the Zoom webinar does have a Q&A feature. So you can type questions in there. I think how we're going to do it is, guys, just type in questions as we're going along, and then we'll take a break after sort of each section of Vince's presentation to address some of those questions. I'll just read them out and give Vince a chance to answer those questions as we go along. I think we will probably just take a short, maybe 5-minute break after 45, 50 minutes or so, give people a chance to stretch their legs, and also give Vince a little break. An hour and a half to 2 hours is a long haul for a workshop. So let's see, again, we have the Q&A section. We also have the chat. I posted the links to each of the videos that Vince will be showing in that chat section. We're really crossing our fingers in that our bandwidth is going to be up to the test of Vince sharing video on his screen today. But there may be issues. So if you are having issues viewing, you'll have those links so that you can look at them directly in your own computer. And Vince will probably have a couple recommendations for viewing the videos as he gets started. So with that, I guess I'll just do an introduction to Vince. Vince Frankie of Peregrine Productions. LCBP has been working with Vince for, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years now, I think. Right. And have really enjoyed working with him. He's done some great work on several video series that we've produced. Super knowledgeable, definitely a skilled editor, videographer, producer, and also has a background in wildlife management. So he does have sort of that base level knowledge and a lot of the environmental issues and the water quality issues that we're working on in the lake. So that also makes it really easy and fun to work with Vince. So with that, I think I will hand it over to Vince. Again, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A section, or any comments, you can also put them in the chat. Thanks, Vince, it's all yours.
Great, thank you, Ryan. First of all, I am really excited to hopefully answer some questions, give you guys some tips and tricks, and hopefully get many of you, all of you, some media. So I am picking up a little bit of background noise. I'm not sure if there's a way to mute, but I'll just keep talking. So, having said that, I am a little more comfortable behind the camera and usually interacting with folks one-on-one. So I appreciate your patience with this medium. And Ryan and I have gone through many of these things trying to solve the tech issues beforehand, but you never know. So in putting this together, it's a bit of an unknown with so many of you. I wasn't sure quite people's comfort level with tech issues or their experience with cameras and filming. So I basically tried to cover the basics, but also get a little more complicated where I thought it was important. So yeah, please feel free to write any questions in, because I'm happy to, I kept these sections short so that we can answer those questions while they're still fresh. So please write those in. And if I can't answer them on the spot, I will definitely do that research and get back to you. So I basically will be following the Google Doc outline that Ryan has emailed to all of you. So feel free to follow along with that and take any notes on there, or just use it as a reference later. And all these links are embedded in that Google Doc as well. You know, the last 5-10 years with the internet, video has, the numbers of viewing, the numbers of media being produced has just grown exponentially. So it is still incredibly important to be producing media. And what they found with the, you know, with social media, it's not just producing one longer piece. They do like to see recurring posts, and it's also a way for the public to get to know an organization or people within an organization. So I think it is really important to be producing media, and it's great that it's so available to folks, but because there's so much available, attention spans are really dropping. So, you know, there's a lot of statistics out there. You know, social media is looking at 30-second videos to 2-minute videos. You know, some of the statistics are you'll lose a third of your audience in that first 30 seconds. So make sure you do get some of your critical information in there, or make sure you appeal to your audience in a way that keeps them on there. And when you do have a piece that, you know, most of these should have a call to action at the end, try to be conscious of the time. And if you are going to stretch it longer, try to get that call to action in there, you know, in that 1 to 2 minute or 2-minute range, so that you can capture some of those people that are leaving. You know, as my notes say, as many as 60% of people will drop off after 2 minutes. And there are, I'll be advocating for all of you to start a YouTube channel, and you'll have those types of tools to look at and see when your audience is dropping off throughout a video. So that's great information as you start producing a couple programs. So I did list some additional statistics that would be good to look at some later point as you're thinking about how, you know, not creating a full-blown media strategy, but just thinking about how you want to produce pieces and share them with folks. So looking at the survey results, it looked like the majority of folks were interested in presenter style or how-to videos, mostly with one person being the presenter. So I've tailored a lot of this to that presenter style, but a lot of these lessons and tips can go towards a documentary piece or a narrative where you're profiling one person and that's that story. So I'll try to make sure those tangents or those options are known when you can use them. I mean, basically, I'm giving a lot of tips and overall structure, and all the pros will say it's good to know these lessons, but then it's also good to be flexible enough to break them when it's important. So I feel like that's a hard thing to understand when you can break tips like that. But just bringing up the production value with some basic tips coming up, I think will really help engage more people. So the first section to get through is actually the planning and the organization. And this stage is where the heart of it is. It really, when I do advocate for starting with your main message and your audience. And when you know those two things, literally write them down. I feel like putting them on paper really makes you analyze how accurate it is, and it just puts a little bit more emphasis on things and will help you be much more specific. So in the past, many people have said, if you've got, don't try to tell 2 or 3 different messages in one video, just focus on one story and support that and have your call to action. And I feel like with social media these days, that actually is a little bit easier, because we do want to have, you know, a post every month or a, you know, so by having a very focused video, it's a more effective video, and you're allowing yourself to create other media down the road without gobbling up all your content in one piece. So I actually use this basic, I'm going to share my screen here for a second, basic Word doc to give to people to kind of analyze where they should be thinking and putting their thoughts down. So excuse me while here we go. So it's a bit of an initial questionnaire. Again, most importantly is writing down this message. You often can have supporting messages, so keep those in mind. Get down your primary audience and then any additional directions you think might be helpful. The distribution is, there's really so many options with Facebook and YouTube channels and websites and blogs, etc. So really analyze how you're hoping to get these videos out to your audience. A general rule is, if you've got a captive audience, say if you're training volunteers, or say if you're putting together a how-to that you've got some interest already, you can go longer because basically they're either trapped or they're interested. If you're putting together promotional pieces or more quick blasts where you're trying to just gain more awareness or try to bring in other people, a shorter piece is really critical. So that affects how you're going to tell your story. And then getting in mind your timeline is really important, because there's also often, I have found in different projects, sensitive dates whether you want to get things before they leaf out, or you want to get a farmer's field before, as the field is being planted, etc. So identifying those early on will really help you. And then also a little bit of research on what's been done and what is out there. I find that, you can like a style that you'd like to emulate, or just a way information is presented. Those are all good to have at your disposal. So I'll bounce back to my original comments from here. So basically, I guess I got through the distribution, how people are watching. That really is important, is keeping things concise if you are trying to reach a broad audience. So I guess what I'll do is maybe I'll stop there and see if Ryan, if anyone has checked in with questions for that overall. I'll show you another document that I use to put together some of these thoughts, but just getting them on paper just as bullets initially, I feel like is helpful to get people going.
At this point, Vince, we don't have any questions in the Q&A yet, so let's just keep going.
Okay, great. So I thought I'd basically break out the components of what works well for a piece, and that opening, opening sentence or two, or 20 to 30 seconds, that introduction is given how short people's attention span is, and given how quickly people click through media and click to the next one, I do put a lot of importance on that opening 30 seconds. So if we're all not paid presenters and haven't had that experience, but I would say, give it a little bit of thought, be creative and genuine, and think of your audience as you're putting together that opening piece. So what I have here is if it's a broad reach, make sure you're including everyone in that comment or in the introduction. If you are sending this to all the members of your organization, they already have an initial interest, and maybe there's some common connection between you all that you can tie into. So this opening, I would say, it's also a way to to let the viewer get to know you. I think if you're developing multiple pieces, what brings people back and what gets people watching videos, I would argue sometimes, is not just to learn the content. It's because, you know, they enjoy listening to a particular person, or they value what that person has to say. So if you can, you know, use that opening or use the video itself to kind of give people a little bit of insight into you, I think that goes a long ways. So I have a couple examples here, and I'll jump to a piece I worked on with Chris Slasar many years ago, but this was a promotional piece for his Indiegogo campaign. So I guess we went into this knowing that people who would, you know, click to watch the video or to learn more about the underpass, you know, the salamander and amphibian underpass, we knew they were already going to have some interest. So it wasn't that we had to cast a wide net. So I have to admit, we didn't put together a storyboard for this, but in preparation, I asked Chris to, you know, to give some thought to his audience. I asked him to kind of go over and review what the situation was, what his solution was, and how important it was, and then come up with, you know, his ask. So he had thought about all these things. This was filmed well, we used some footage of amphibians that was recorded at other times, but this was all put together in 2 hours or so, filmed in 2 hours. So I'll play this. And I guess one quick note on the video, it goes against everything I ever have learned, but I'm not going to play these full screen just because I think people are going to run into bandwidth issues on your end. So we're not playing this full screen in hopes that there's not the jitters and the stutters. So I apologize for the partial screen, but I guess just as you're watching, be aware of the hook and think about Chris setting up what the situation is, what the solution is, and you know, he sets these things up very clearly, and it's one person presenting to the camera. So here we go.
Can you imagine if you had to risk your life to reproduce? So in the early spring, the amphibians emerge from this winter habitat in the upland forest behind me, and they must make the journey across to the wetlands here where they breed. They must cross this busy road, which bisects both crucial pieces of their habitat. Presently, we have 1,600 cars a day that use this road, and it's projected that by the end of the decade, we're going to have close to 2,000 cars a day. Those numbers make it nearly impossible for the salamanders and the frogs to cross the road and get to the breeding pool. There are rare salamanders here that you won't find anywhere else in the state, and the numbers of salamanders that we have here are astonishing. We're building 2 wildlife crossing structures at this site in order to create a safe passageway for amphibians and other wildlife. This project isn't about saving individual salamanders, although we'd like to save them all. This project is about sustaining this regionally significant population. This project is grounded in solid biological science and state-of-the-art engineering. We know it's going to work. We have shovel-ready plans. This project is going to be the model for similar situations around the country and around the globe. They're basically large, dry box culverts with natural bottoms and long stretches of retaining walls, and we're going to funnel the amphibians under the road to the breeding pools and back under the road when they come out. So we've raised a lot of money so far. We've gotten 2 huge federal grants. We've gotten several smaller grants from regional organizations and foundations, and now we're looking to people like you who care about biodiversity around the country and around the globe to help us close our funding gap and take the plans that we have and put them into construction.
right. So I feel like if I had to pick that apart now, I'd say it's a pretty long hook, and but I think we had the liberty because we felt like we had a somewhat interested audience to start with. So that's what you kind of have to analyze is you all probably know your audience pretty well, you know their interests, and another example of that was a piece I did with Jim Andrews, where he was doing another promotional piece trying to get money for some funding, and he knew, you know, the people clicking in were going to have an interest, so he didn't want to just get straight to the call to action, the request. He kind of wanted to ask them or show them, you know, some engaging footage and draw them in that way. So it was a fun piece, and it was a slightly different hook in that we really didn't use any of the words that, you know, we didn't use Chris's description. We went straight to some engaging footage that hopefully catches people's interest, hands reaching into the river with ice floating by. So I'm going to quickly jump to this one. Ryan, did that play back okay for you? I can't hear anyone else's comments, so I just want to make sure after the first video is played.
It looked fine for me. If anybody's having issues, just put a note in the chat.
Okay, and I think, yeah, if they did have significant issues, they could click the link to the Herp Atlas video and just watch it through. Because I know even 3 minutes of listening to stutters and watching garbled video is painful. So
right, and again, those links are at the very top of the chat box. I pasted them in there first thing, so you can find them there.
Okay, so here's another alternate hook, and we did, you know, make sure that he was very clear with his situation and eventually request. But again, knowing our audience with this, we wanted to not reward them, but to entertain them and hopefully educate them a little bit as well. So we'll give this a go.
What you got? Where'd you go?
You may have gone down that.
My name's Jim Andrews, and I've coordinated the Reptile Amphibian Atlas since 1994, so about 25 years. We have a bunch of hardy herpers here today trying to find you an amphibian larvae or adult. You know, it's one of the coldest days of the winter so far, but all the herps that are here in the summer are here now. Some of them are under the snow. There's some species, snakes and others, which will be down deep in the ground below the frost line. And then there's some others that are going to be taking advantage of the heat, geothermal heat, really. It's groundwater. It's going to be like 40, 45 degrees, and it's going to keep them from freezing. So we're going to try to find you an amphibian here. What you got? Any, get some, Chris?
This one didn't overwinter very well.
Oh, you missed him. I saw him. You had him. I mean, he may well be just tucked in here in front of us somewhere.
Right.
There he is, right there on top of that red rock. See the red rock?
Oh, there's a fish there too.
Oh, there it is. Baby, got him.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Hey, we got one. Northern two-line. This is a nice adult. It's one of the lungless salamanders. So it's taking in oxygen from that really, really cold water. So now for the favor that I need to ask of you. We've decided that we needed to undertake our very first public fundraising effort. We've lived entirely off grants. Although we depend on a significant amount of volunteer effort and citizen science, our work also requires some money. One of our three main sources of funding is a federal grant, and that source has dropped from $20,000 back in 2015 to $8,500. So, you know, we dropped $11,500. And so what I'm asking you to help us do is not only make up that drop of $11,500, but we also have to take on another project. And that is, we have some old records that, you know, back in the paper days and prints and slides, and nobody's going to want those in the future. And the whole idea is to get all of our data in an electronic form that can be transferred to the new formats as they come online in the future. So I hope you'll consider making a donation to the Reptile Amphibian Atlas. We've come up with some creative incentives that you could check out online. And once you've done that,
okay,
if you could...
I'll stop it there. And but I guess just to quickly review, I mean, basically the components that are going to help you outline how you're going to put your piece together is starting with the obvious introduction, covering the situation and the solution that you're proposing, or demonstrating what has been done and why it works and why you need additional funding, and then any additional details that either include supporting benefits or actually draws more of an emotional connection from your audience to this project, and then of course the call to action. So having said all that, there are some folks that say, a hook or something that's engaging or fun is, some people recommend not even including that, because they do say that first 30 seconds is so critical that you should just get straight to the exact situation and solution that you're offering. So again, it's there's a lot of trade-offs and decisions to make. So I think that'll be one for you all to weigh. This is kind of the presenter style order and suggested order. There's also a few folks mentioned interest in narrative pieces and documentaries. I have outlined kind of the same kind of suggested structure for these. With the narrative piece, it's basically a narrative. It's basically, it's basically a story that, people can draw different meanings from it, and you can have many different reasons for putting that story together. So first step is identifying the hero, establishing the issue or the pain point, and then as you cover the quest, I think it's really important to identify your audience and what you're trying to get your audience to feel, what you're trying to get your audience to learn in that quest, and that might you'll decide how to approach that, and then of course bringing it all together with a conclusion. And then a documentary piece can actually be very similar to the original presenter piece, although it's going to include voices from a number of different people, but you still need that intro overview. You need to get to the point of the main message you want to communicate, and then tackle the solutions and draw people in as you present the call to action. So I'll show a quick, I won't show the whole piece, but I guess I'll show a quick piece that is documentary style. I'll cover some of the differences on how to film documentary style versus the presenter piece later, but I will get into this fairly quickly. So and I'll say with this, I mixed things up a little bit. I have a bit of a longer introduction. I wanted to kind of tackle this story at the Charlotte School first. And then I knew I had two watershed groups that I wanted to introduce and highlighting their particular program. What I ended up doing was starting with the school project, because I felt like it was engaging and it was an opportunity to throw in some education around why these methods are important. I then bounced to Friends of the Mad River instead of continuing with the Lewis Creek Association, because a lot of those examples were very similar. So I basically broke it up both for diversity of voices as well as diversity of visuals and diversity of content. So I'll just play the first 2-3 minutes of this to show you the doc style.
Come over here. You guys start working on pulling. We're here at the Shelburne Community School. It's in the middle of the traffic circle where the buses load and unload the students every day. We've had at least 80 students out here to do all this planting. And The purpose of this rain garden is to capture all the water from impervious surface. Impervious meaning the parking lots and the driveway circle. And so all of the pollutants that were on the asphalt came right into this catch basin and had no opportunity for those pollutants to get filtered out. So the idea of reducing pollution is primarily to try and get the phosphorus out.
Community-based watershed organizations complete pollution prevention projects and provide technical assistance and support to local landowners.
These are called blue flag iris.
Rain gardens and other nature-based solutions to stormwater runoff help reduce phosphorus inputs to Lake Champlain and help local communities become more flood resilient.
I think a lot of people in the valley are looking for opportunities to be good neighbors, and whether that's trying to protect the town roads or improve biodiversity or what have you, they're looking for those opportunities. But in our day-to-day lives, it can be hard to know exactly what to do.
Clean water for our Mad River watershed and for the larger Lake Champlain watershed really takes everyone. There are a lot of challenges associated with ownership of land on a steep property related to water quality, and we're able to help people address the challenges that they face with their pocketbooks and the pollution and flood volume being passed downstream. The origins of StormSmart are in our Ridge to River Coalition, which is a group of people who came together in 2015.
The StormSmart program is generally based on an energy audit, but instead of tracking kilowatt hours, we track the path that water takes through the property.
I think this program really allows us to reach people who are in control of the headwaters.
Generally speaking, the homeowner and I walk around their home. We look at key areas like water that's coming off the roof, the condition and quality of the driveway, and then we just take a big picture look at how water is moving through that property. We use a number of different resources that are geared towards sort of small-scale stormwater management practices, and then I connect what I see on the property to these practices, and then I send that back to the homeowner. In the ideal version, we then go ahead and we implement some of these practices. By planting trees on your properties, repairing your driveway so that water sheds off it, you're doing your part so that the entire valley is able to benefit.
Lewis Creek Association has been active in...
Okay, I'll pause it there. So hopefully you can pull out those specific parts of the content that are needed for these pieces. I think I'll maybe start. So basically, thanks for your patience. I realize I'm just speaking to a computer and I don't get any feedback with this setup. So I think this is working, but I hope it's working for everyone. So basically that tackles the actual components of the content within your piece. The next section, I'll get into the actual video process and how you take that content and plan your video basically from start to finish. So I guess I should stop there and ask Ryan if there's any clarifications he thinks I should make, or if there are any questions I can answer at this point.
Great. Yeah, there are a few questions, Vince. We'll dive into those real quick before you move on. First one, Sue says her screen share is fuzzy and not legible. I'm not sure if that's gotten any better. It sounds like some people are having better luck, and I haven't heard from anybody else. It looks okay to me, so hopefully that's improved.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm plugged into Ethernet, and we've got an incredibly fast connection here. So I'm hoping that playing it's not full screen is helping the majority of you. I think, unfortunately, it's not, as far as watching video, it's not just your connection speed, it's also the graphics, etc. So, and this Zoom technology as well. So I appreciate your patience. And if it's unbearable, I would suggest, when I start the video, click the link. Well, I'll make sure I'm mentioning which video I'm going to play, and you can go and watch that, and then come right back to this if that's possible for folks suffering.
Okay. Great, thanks. And then Nick Warner was looking for some camera options and editing software recommendations. I think you're going to get a little bit into equipment a little later on, right, Vince?
Yes, I'll definitely get into that. And I've got some links a little bit further down. So hopefully my structure will make sense, but I will definitely get into those those points. So,
Right.
and if I don't cover your points, Nick, ask any specific questions, you know, as I'm talking through that, and I'll tackle it after. So.
All right. Sandy asks, in the first video, there was no introduction of names or organizations. The second, there was a partial introduction of a name. What type of situations do you recommend for introductions versus no introductions, especially if the videos are going on social media and can be shared by other people?
That's a great question. It's a bit of another decision for you all to make. I often advocate, no one comes across a video just randomly without clicking some kind of link or seeing something. So I often advocate for not putting up a title screen because it's, I would argue, potentially a lost 5 seconds if you just put up text on a screen with nothing. And people have already seen who's produced this video, or have seen a title of the video, or come, you know, in the first video's situation, it was posted only on Indiegogo. So it was a specific, you know, fundraising website where people saw the project. You know, they basically had to read through a couple bullets to get to the video. So it was all described for them. And so we felt like streamlining it got straight to the point. But that was a good point, that if Chris wasn't titled, that is easy to put on the screen. It doesn't take any additional time. I feel like it always adds value to a piece. So if you can put up a lower third, and I can talk about that a little bit later, basically the person's name and organization, it gives them a little bit more credibility and makes their message stronger. So I would say always put up always put up a person's name and title. As far as an opening title, I try to minimize the amount of time spent on that. If, you know, what I've done with some folks, I mean, I obviously will put the video together however they would like, but we've come to an understanding where we can put the title on the screen during the video, or while we're hearing the first comment that might serve as the hook. So you're reinforcing, you know, whether it's this organization or what the project is while you're getting it. So it sounds kind of maybe basic, but video is a fun tool because it's not just you know, it's not just hearing the words and seeing an image. It's how those two are playing off of each other. So you don't always have to spend as much time describing something when you can show the video at the same time you're hearing an overview. You know, people will put the two together, and that message will be clearer. So hopefully that makes sense.
Great, thanks, Vince. See, Amy Overstreet asked, is there any kind of standard video rule that states the amount of time you should have one static talking head shot? That can get old after a while, but mixing it up with action shots makes it more interesting. Just wondering if you have a rule in terms of time allowed per shot of one person talking.
Yeah, that I would say there's not a hard, fast rule. I think it depends on the genre, and it also depends on what you have available to your production. So I try to, as a general rule for me, I try to minimize the amount of time people are on camera at the beginning. I get them on screen pretty early so that I can get their name and title, and the audience knows who is presenting the information. But then, and that's, you know, I'll spend 5 to 10 seconds so that people can read their name and take in the face and not feel rushed. But then I try to go to as much, you know, supporting footage, it's called B-roll in the industry, as possible. Another rule though is if you're getting into emotional content or where you're trying to draw an emotional or you know, a connection, it's great to cut back to the person, and you kind of get more leeway of showing a talking head when you want somebody to relate to you and you're putting yourself out there. So unfortunately, there's no hard and fast rule. You can kind of tell when you watch pieces if a production company didn't have the time to gather that extra footage, or if it's just really difficult to get it. they're gonna live with the talking head for a lot longer. I'm gonna get into storyboards a little bit and show you an opportunity where even if it's a talking head, you can change the composition. So, you know, I'll suggest starting with a wide establishing shot, and then, you know, you can map this out. I'll go through that in the storyboard, but mapping out the 2 or 3 comments you want to make as a wide shot, and then change the composition, go in a little closer, and get more footage that way. So, sorry for the long-winded answer.
Couple more questions here, Vince. Caroline Blake asked, how about instructional videos? How does that change things? I think she means in terms of components or suggested order.
Yeah, I think you have to, I guess my first question would be, is if people are forced to watching this instructional video and you don't, or if you're trying to get people to watch, if you're trying to get people that introduction or that hook might be more valuable. If you're putting together a mandatory instructional video, I would just start with that basic introduction, overview what you're going to cover. And then instead of the situation and solution, I would just, swap that out for the process and get straight into the specifics of the process. And sometimes it's important to be very specific with the wording of an instructional video. Other times you can allow, that combination of what you're showing and a streamlined version of what you're saying to be complementary. And then, it's nice to have, towards the end, a way to either wrap it all up again, or to provide, a link or resource where folks can find out more information or see it in text. So.
Great. Sarah Hill asks, what about having the logo in a top corner throughout the duration of the video? Is that a no-no, or is that okay?
I think that's great. It's obviously reinforces who you are and keeps people aware. One thing that it does when footage is shaky or when it's not on a tripod, any text or images on a screen really show or magnify a camera shake or show a bad pan. So I would say if you're trying to raise awareness around your organization, you can even throw it up for the first 15 seconds and then bring it back at the end if you've got some less than desirable shots in the middle. So but I see videos both ways, and I think if it's done tactfully, I think that's appreciated by the viewer. I think if it's overdone, I would suggest trying to get that logo on a transparent background so that it's not literally text or an icon on a white square that's visually distracting from it. If you can get it to sit on there a little more cleanly, that would be great.
Great. One more here, and then we will move on, and I will try to talk loud and strong for Colleen Hickey. How do you plan for accommodations for varying sight or hearing abilities? Or do you add that after editing is final? From Elizabeth Lee at the Maritime Museum.
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I will have to research the sight impairments. I do know, as far as audio questions, if I'm advocating for everyone to use a YouTube channel, YouTube automatically produces a transcript and closed captions or subtitles your videos, and people can go on there and turn them on or off. So I think that's a great way so YouTube does it automatically. Facebook, I've heard different things. I guess I can't confirm Facebook, but I would go in and double check. Once you've loaded a video to YouTube, I would just check to make sure there's no typos. I have heard of some embarrassing word slips that YouTube has misunderstood. So we can dive in later to how to change that transcript. There is also a feature on YouTube that you can automatically turn those subtitles on. So the viewer starts with them on, and it's literally just clicking an icon for the viewer to turn them off if it's annoying. So one statistic that's actually been out there for a while, from Facebook, you know, I guess a couple have ranged, but I've heard anywhere from 60 to 80% of Facebook videos are watched with the speaker muted. So I guess I'm interpreting that as people at the office watching videos and not wanting other people to know what's going on. So making sure those subtitles are accurate is important. And that also puts a little more pressure on your visuals, you know, to keep them as engaging as possible. So unlike right now with just a talking head with me just sitting here in the middle of the screen, it's gonna have to be pretty engaging script to keep people watching. So if you can add a little bit of more engaging video to the beginning, that will help. So, but I'll take note of helping improve your piece for visually impaired as well, if I understood the question correct.
Great, thanks, Vince. Let's, I guess, continue on. There's one more question here, but I think we can get to that at the end of this next section.
Okay, great. So basically going through the process, we've identified, you know, the first step is identifying your message and audience and your goal. That kind of jumps to the call to action at the end, what you want people to do, whether it's just raising awareness or whether you want to engage people to come out and volunteer, or if you're trying to get people to actually to donate. So that all needs to be figured out. The next step is kind of analyzing, I say needs and equipment, and that's, you know, for the piece, I did put together a how-to video to kind of show you how I put it together. So for that, basically, I just needed my iPhone and basically a tripod so I could do this all myself. So I understood the equipment that I needed, the timing I could figure out and fit into my schedule. Excuse me, but if you're using DSLRs or GoPros, I would say, you know, equipment also includes backups, and backups are crucial. So thinking about having an extra SD card on hand if you're using a GoPro. I'll talk about a little bit later, but making sure there's enough space on your iPhone so that you aren't going to have to delete things in the field. It's the same thing with an SD card. I always have extras because I never want to have to make the decision on what to erase when I'm in the field, distracted with other things going on. Always have extra battery with an iPhone. Just looking at a note here. So yeah, this is step 2 for the overall process, is analyzing the needs and equipment. Making sure you have an extra battery or a battery charger for your phone. If you are using your phone, you know, those small bricks you can use to plug it in between takes. And if it's in the winter, you keep those batteries in your pocket, not in an outside bag. That warmth will keep a battery life going. It'll even bring back what seems like a dead battery in the field. So if you're filming and that battery dies, and that's the only one you have, take it out, put it in your pocket, get it warm, and you'll have a little more time. Then getting into mapping out the content. We basically talked about those steps above. And the next step is the storyboard. And I do think it's a really valuable tool for presentations and how-tos. For documentaries and narratives, I don't use it as much, but I think for the type of videos that I gleaned that you were trying to do from the survey that Ryan sent out, or LCBP sent out, it's a great tool to force you all to get things figured out and outline your steps and your scenes so that when you get on location, you literally know exactly what you want to get done. Let me jump to a blank storyboard that I have used. Basically a storyboard is just a visual representation of what a scene looks like, and some people get nervous about, you know, drawing visuals, but as my demonstration will show, you can do it with stick figures. But basically, you can make your own storyboard, or you can copy this one, or just make a table in a Word doc. But have it be a horizontal aspect ratio, so it's like what your camera is going to see. In this example, I've got you know, a smaller rectangle below the bigger boxes where you can put the scene name, you can put the focus of what that piece is, and I'll just scroll down to what I did for the how-to video. So I'll wait till the laughing subsides, but it can be this simple. I mean, basically what I have here on the left-hand side, my scene one, what you'll see in a second, is my introduction. And you know, that I represent my composition just by drawing a bigger head. And I've put my text bullets that I want to cover in that scene here on the left-hand side. And then basically I knew for the next scene, I wanted to tackle all 7 steps of making the video. And I knew I wanted to put text on screen. So I framed it with me over to the side with plenty of room for these text bullets, basically. So you can use this to put your thoughts down and get organized before you're standing out there in the sun with cars going by and having a few other distractions. I feel like it's a great way to get organized. It's also your tool in the edit to really keep things organized. And I'll say, you know, when I put this together, I basically knew exactly the order, so I could just drag and drop clips in, you know, scene 1, scene 2, and I assembled it from there very quickly, and it doesn't come down to memory and watching all of the clips. So let me look at my notes as far as, yeah, and this, I would say if the storyboard also helps you recognize what visuals you might want to capture. So as you're thinking about, you know, say the, over here I'm talking about the most common mistakes, it'll get you thinking about the visual that you want. And once you've thought that through a little bit, when you get to your location, if you're open-minded, you're going to recognize what works and what doesn't work, and you might find a better visual for your content. So I think this does take a little bit of time, but it's going to save you time in the edit, and it will help to make your piece a little more efficient. So, just a quick things to notice from this. Yeah, I am definitely not an artist, but this helped me put my piece together. I literally, for the video I'll show in a little bit, I stood there with the iPhone on my tripod with this storyboard taped to it so that I could just glance down and look at, you know, remind myself of the 7 points of the, you know, of putting together a video. So you could add the length of time in here if you wanted, you know, if you wanted to make sure, just give yourself some pointers. So, you know, 30 seconds for your intro, and you knew your steps in the storyboard are going to take longer. You could map that out. So I think people are often surprised at how long a video gets. So if you just even estimate how long you think each step is going to take, you'll be surprised that your video is twice as long as you thought it was going to be. So it might help you refine your content. And all of this can be done before you start shooting instead of in the edit when you start weighing things out. So it can definitely be done both ways, but I'm sure you all have other things on your list to get done as well. So hopefully this will help you get things done quickly. I think I tackled all of this. Yeah, I think that's the storyboard will definitely answer any questions to that. But I think, first of all, I'll show the opening, the first 2 scenes of this how-to video. And I basically wanted to produce this to show you the steps. So it ended up being 9 minutes in total. I broke it into 3 different sections for this workshop. So we've provided links to these as separate parts, and then I think it's listed somewhere in the doc, that the whole 9-minute video if you want to go back and take a look. But this was all filmed with a iPhone 8 and a cheap tripod. And for the pieces where I needed to spin around, I just collapsed my tripod and used it as a selfie stick, and which can work in a pinch. It's not ideal because it is really heavy. Selfie sticks are incredibly light. I'll show you, I'll send a link to that when I recommend a basic kit for people to get. But all of this was on my tripod with my phone and no microphone added to it, which it's my second most recommended piece of gear. So, so to get around not having a microphone, I needed to stay very close to my iPhone, which can lead to unflattering close-ups. So, so those are the trade-offs with that. But I'll basically show you that first piece. Sorry, it defaults to a larger screen, so I'll try to. Keep it a little smaller.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining. You're lucky I didn't start out with one of my corny hooks just to get your attention, but that's a great way to start a video if you can find an original start. For this, you're all kind of forced to watch anyway, so I spared you. But what I thought would be most useful for a video like this is basically to quickly run through the entire process of what it takes to make this video, as well as cover a couple and show you a couple pointers on how to bring back better looking footage. First, a quick note on audio. I purposefully backed away from the camera to change my composition as well as give me some room to put text on the screen easily, but it's really pushing the quality of the audio that my camera could pick up. So you can hear the dog barking, etc. So if you can use an on-camera mic, that would definitely help your story. The first step to any video is identifying the message and your audience. I would say for this group, I knew I wanted to identify the process of making a video, as well as identify a few opportunities to improve how your footage looks. The audience, I figured that out through the spreadsheet that Ryan provided me, so I knew hopefully what works best for you all. As far as the needs, I wanted to make this an accessible video that you all could do, so it's basically a cheap tripod and my iPhone. As far as the content, I kind of identified that. You basically want to list the content. That's basically an overview of the process and identifying specific outdoor, indoor lighting opportunities to improve your footage. I find it helpful to storyboard projects that are how-tos or presenter style videos, so you capture all the footage you need to, and it just helps in the filming to make it more organized. So I'll put up a picture of this storyboard here, and we might go into it in more detail in the lesson. The fifth step is actually just to get out there and shoot. Bring bug spray, bring sunscreen, maybe even a jug of water. That all helps. The last step is getting it into your computer and editing it. I'll show you a link to a demo that you can actually review and edit everything within your iPhone, which it's an incredible tool. So I would suggest that for many folks. And lastly is sharing. And so I'd say getting a YouTube channel that your organization can post videos to is the first step. And then the second step is actually part of the editing process. It's a share feature within the editing that allows you to export to YouTube, to Facebook, etc. So from here, we're going to talk a little bit about outdoor lighting, and I will jump to the next scene.
Okay. Well, thanks for your patience. I have reorganized the structure a little bit, so I apologize for the repetitive nature of some of this. But I guess I'll stop here and ask Ryan if there's any questions at this point, and maybe after that we might take a quick break and then come right back and get into the actual filming tips and the tricks and go from there. So.
Okay, sure. We have a couple questions here. I think this one is kind of a carryover from the last section. Actually, Eaton asked, what are your recommendations for shots and angles in odd or small spaces? For example, a research vessel, a dense forest, etc.
Yeah, I guess I'd curious to hear about the camera or the equipment that he's using. But I would say if you're using a phone, I guess in general, we basically live life from 5 feet up or 6 feet up, or eye level. So you'll see this in the news a lot. They shoot from every different angle. They throw the camera on the ground a lot. and they'll throw it up over their head and look down on things. So I think if you can provide angles that you don't typically see or that are slightly different, I think that just the angle engages people. So I guess I'll try not to cover it again later, but I try to, there's a shot progression where you typically start with a wide shot that establishes the scene, and then you can move into a medium shot that identifies the specific points of interest, and then you can get into close-ups, whether it's a person's face or the button they're touching. So getting back to the actual question, in tight spaces on the Melisira, I would think about, if possible, shoot, I would check, if you can shoot through a window to establish a shot, backing up and framing it from a doorway so that you at least establish where things are, that I think would be helpful. What can carry your piece if you're running out of visuals is a number of close-ups and reversals. So if you're, in a small space, you're going to have this ability because you're going to be right on top of the action. But, it sounds simple, but getting shots of, say the touch screen, get your camera on the touch screen, have the person then reach in to the frame and start punching away, getting the shot of just the hands, you can use at any point, and you can use when you transition from, one comment to the next. Letting people walk in and out of the frame can buy you a little bit of extra time. But I would say thinking about as many different compositions in those tight spaces will allow you to mix it up. And if I didn't answer your question, please write back.
Okay, moving on to the next one. Sandy Bender asked, I would like to hear about general rules on putting short text blurbs or words on the screen during different sections of a video. Not what the person is saying, but simple phrases to highlight what is being said or shown.
Yeah, these are great. And, there's so many different types of learners. And so using text on the screen is that way to capture and reinforce content with visual learners. So the biggest lessons, I would say, is if you can pin down how and when you want to use that text before you shoot, that will allow you to frame your shots accordingly. So what happens often is people don't have space to put the text. You need to put the text on a part of the screen that doesn't have a lot of motion and is not going to be really distracting. So whether you're framing, the lake with the mountains and the sky with the clouds, you've got opportunities to put it down in the water or up in the sky. So think about finding places that aren't distracting, and think about people often don't keep the text up for long enough. I feel like your eyes trying to bounce around and take it all in. So if you really want that content to be learned, leave it up for slightly longer than you think. Definitely using some fonts that don't have serifs, using a drop shadow. You want your text to be on a highly contrasted. So if you can frame a darker scene or put it in a darker area, that way it's easier to read.
Okay, great. Amy Overstreet asked, on the video you just showed, your first lesson, did you use any mic at all or just the iPhone audio? It sounded pretty good.
That was the iPhone audio, just the 8. I was literally, 20 inches away, which, I would not, if I had my druthers, I wouldn't have my face that close to the screen. And if you're filming someone who isn't used to being on camera, that can be a little intimidating. So I have a link a little further on that you can clip on, literally plugs into the lightning port or the previous ports to give you a little bit more depth from your subject, and the audio is much cleaner. But yeah, I was surprised at that first scene how clean the audio was. In the second scene where I stood back, I think that was about 3.5 feet. As I edited it, I could hear the dog barking. I could hear my voice drop off. I didn't adjust the volume levels at all to show you that difference. So when you watch it again, you'll hear the levels of my voice drop and the levels of the ambient sound in the background come up a little bit. You hear the birds a little bit more compared to my voice. So.
Okay, and related to editing software on phones, a couple of questions. Leanne Hansen asked, can we assume that Android has similar software? And then Maya asked, can you repeat what was said about editing on the phone itself?
I actually, I'll get into the editing on the phone in a couple more sections. I was going to go through the cameras a tiny bit, get into some shooting tips, and then get into the editing towards the end. So I think I'll leave it at that, just so I keep my order and keep me on focus. So. Okay,
great. Well, that's it for now. I think, why don't we take just maybe a 3 or 4 minute break, stretch your legs, run to get a drink of water, whatever you want to do. I have 2:07 on my computer. We'll start again, say around 2:11 or 2:12.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right, maybe we'll keep moving forward with one more question from that last section from Ashley before we jump into the equipment piece. Ashley asked, what recommendations do you have for recycling video clips? For example, recorded webinars. Do you recommend trying to pull audio and creating new shots?
That's interesting. Yeah, I always keep an eye on how I can reuse footage down the road. I haven't thought about webinars, but that is the beauty. I edit on external hard drives, and so I basically keep everything because hard drives are so inexpensive these days. So it both acts as a way to back up footage on a different location and a different hard drive, but by having footage, accessible, you can go back and pull a clip. So I'll have to think about this more. Sorry, Ashley, but no, that's a good. I always think about if I'm on a location and I have a specific goal for a video, but if it's a unique spot and if I think there might be other videos down the road, I'll capture 1 or 2 shots that I know I'm not going to use in this piece, but I have it there. So that's a slightly different answer, but it's hard to and time consuming to get footage sometimes. So if you have that opportunity, capture it, drop it on the hard drive, and remember it's there.
Great, thanks, Vince. So I guess we'll just keep on going, get into the equipment. I think a lot of people are waiting for some tips on specific equipment.
Great. Yeah, this is the fun part. The organization is not as engaging, but it's so critical. I guess, first of all, from this point on, I would have to just put one word of encouragement out there that every part of this is troubleshooting is such a component of it. So when you're new to making videos, there's a lot of little mistakes that happen, and my goal is just not to make them a second time. So I think it sounds like many of you will be doing the filming and potentially editing. By doing the editing, you will be seeing what you could have done better in the filming. Or if you're not doing both, if you can, communicate that to the shooter, because there's lots of little things, whether you cut too quickly from the end of a person's comment and it's tough to make a transition out, or you want to put text up afterwards. It's all troubleshooting, and it's actually, I find it fun to find solutions, because there are always things you wish you had and you don't have them. So don't get frustrated when you don't have something, because it happens all the time. So getting into, I'm going to start with the iPhone, because that seemed like the majority of what folks were hoping to be using. Film horizontally. So everything you see is well, the majority of it is filmed vertically, and you just end up with lost real estate on the screen. So try to lock that in. When you are filming, like I was on that tripod, you want to minimize your distractions. So put it on airplane mode, or or basically whatever you need to do so that you're not getting calls and you're not distracted. With the iPhone specifically, it's nice to actually lock the exposure and the focus, because sometimes if you're on the not completely centered, the phone will try to focus on the tree behind you or the front. So to lock that, you actually just have to, I don't know if this will be helpful or not, probably won't. Basically, you just have to put your finger over the subject's face. So I could actually do it when my tripod is there, and you hold your finger on the touch screen for 2 seconds, and it'll show you the box where it's focused and where it's exposing for, and it'll lock on, and it won't change your exposure. So that's often helpful. As far as using your iPhone, you need to go in and check your settings before you get on location. Make sure you have enough memory, because it gets a little tricky making that while you're out. So it is in the settings tab under General, under iPhone storage. So you can go in and make those adjustments or deletions. You can back up your phone to the cloud, and that's a way to free up some space, or there's many other opportunities. Just so you do know, with the iPhone, and I guess I can't speak to Androids, I know there's someone out there using an Android, the forward-facing lens is a higher quality lens than when you flip the lens and you're taking a selfie of yourself. The benefit I used, I'm going to call it the selfie lens, which is a lesser quality, but it provided me the chance to see my framing, and I still think, I think at the level of production that we're filming with an iPhone, that quality is not going to be too discernible. So I would opt for being able to see your composition and a slightly lesser image. It sounds simple, but clean your lens before you start filming. It might not look dirty, but you can use a shirt. Just get we're all touching our phones and we're putting oil and grease on there. So definitely clean that before you go. If it's your first time out, I would definitely, and if you're in noisy environments, I would not film the entire intro and then take a look. I would do a test sentence or two and take a listen and look at the composition, check the focus. If it is noisy environment, I would bring a pair of headphones, plug those in for your playback. That way you can make sure you're only hearing what your phone is playing back, because our ears and brains are incredible filters at blocking out a lot of sound in the moment, but it's being recorded and put onto your take. And so it's impossible to remove that loud whir of the car going by at the critical moment of your statement. So that is a critical one, is to do a short test and watch it. And another iPhone tip is, a lot of these you're speaking directly to the audience. And so I found myself, just like I think a lot of webinars, I'm looking at the image and not the actual lens. So if you want to be looking directly into the lens, you need to be, identify where your lens is and look in that direction. In my case, it's at the very edge of the phone. So it feels a little bizarre and you really want to be checking yourself, but try to check that behavior. There's a few things that make people trust a presenter a little bit less. If you think, well, I call them like shady factors. If the person has their sunglasses on, you really want to be able to see people's eyes. So if you're a person that squints in the sun, then you need to find a place in the shade where you can take your sunglasses off, where they can see your eyes. And if your eyes are darting back and forth a whole lot, it's distracting, and it doesn't present that well. So try to get used to looking straight into the lens and sticking there. I'm sure there's many more tips and tricks with the iPhone, but hopefully that gets people started. Some people mentioned using a GoPro, and I think they're also amazing in how they can capture an image. They do much better with stabilization than phones. So if you are doing, more of a selfie walk and talk situation, that I would say, a GoPro is a fantastic option. The newest GoPro does have it's the GoPro Max. It actually has a lens on both directions, so you could shoot 360, but it has a screen so that you can see yourself, which none of the other GoPros had, so you can double check that. The audio is not quite as good on the GoPros, but and also the downside of the GoPro is that you're going to have to use a different editing program to edit that footage. You're not going to be able to do it in camera. So depending on your setup, that might be an issue or might not be. The GoPro is obviously fantastic for underwater shots. You can, that's another fantastic way to add some diversity to the visuals. The most recent two phones, just a quick note, are actually waterproof. They don't have the traditional clear housing anymore that is an obvious waterproof housing. These new ones are waterproof to 15 feet. Just make sure you have the new one and you're not dunking one of the older ones by mistake. I guess DSLRs, one or two folks mentioned you have DSLRs. They're so, they're fantastic. I shoot basically with this. It's a very small camera. It puts people at ease. The image is unbelievable. They're all different. And I guess I'm happy to answer questions specifically, maybe separately about specifics, but I am hesitant to dive into those. Again, I would just say I basically shoot with manual focus and manual exposure. So if you let the camera run on auto, you can inherit problems that you might not see until the edit. So with things shifting. As far as accessories that I'd recommend, I would first say you all should get a tripod. Get the camera out of your hand, and one actually gives you less to worry about. If you're filming yourself presenting somewhere, you can put it on a stand. You don't have to worry. With the selfie stick, you're constantly, or you should be constantly concerned about your composition. With the tripod, it's there, it's steady, and it's done. So one other word on tripods. Well, let me pull this one down. I would suggest for folks with an iPhone to use a tripod with a ball head. I'm not sure how cleanly you can see this. These ball heads are used for still cameras because they don't do much. You don't tilt and pan with a still camera, but with a ball head, it just allows you to level the iPhone really easily without adjusting your camera legs. If you have a typical video tripod with the pan and tilt arm, this is great if you are actually panning and tilting, but if you're on unsteady ground or slanted ground, you're going to have to start adjusting the length of each leg to get your camera steady. So I shoot with the ball head for a lot of projects like this. With that tripod, you're going to need something to hold your iPhone to it. Some will come with the actual iPhone clamp that clips in. But if not, or if you're retrofitting another one, you're going to need to buy this clamp. I use B&H, and I'll jump to that quickly. They have everything, very good descriptions of what you're actually buying, photographs, so you can see what you're getting, and the shipping is unbelievable. So if you're in a pinch, you can get it quickly. Let me find my point. Other than tripods, I think the next most critical step is your audio. So I would say if you can find a microphone that can clip directly on this, hopefully this comes up for everyone. Basically, as you can see, it clips directly into the side of your iPhone, and it picks up an amazing sound. So it can allow you to be much further away from the camera, and incredibly helpful. The selfie stick, I think you probably all are aware of them, but when I used my tripod as the selfie stick, it was too heavy for the job. So you can either buy one of these, which are very affordable, or I actually would advocate for using a monopod, which is very similar, but it's built in the opposite direction. So you can also use this with a GoPro. If you're putting your camera in the water, it extends your reach. Instead of only being able to go a foot or two in the water, you've got 4 feet of depth to go with. So it can be used for both options, basically. The other option, sorry to bounce around, is an actual wired lavalier, which also gives you really clean audio. They're fairly inexpensive. They're gonna, clip directly on the presenter and then have that cable that runs to the camera. And you can get the, the adapter to get to a Lightning with the newer iPhones. So this is the cleanest option. It's a little challenging for folks because you are tethered. So if anybody walks away, things get yanked. And it's just another thing to worry about. But I would say that the time you spend getting good audio at the beginning and the money on this, you're going to save with minimizing, with less editing, trying to clean up bad audio. So I guess I'll stop with that there. And Ryan, are there any questions around some of the gear?
Just one so far. Pat Dowell from Lake George Association asked, do you have a suggestion for a teleprompter program?
Yeah, I can get you one. There's a couple with very similar names. So I don't want to throw one out that's wrong, but yeah, they are pretty impressive. You can put them on iPads and it'll flip the image so you can set it up on a tripod right next to it. I guess you didn't ask, but I think teleprompters are really critical in some situations. I also worry sometimes that you can often, unless they're placed just right, you can often see the person reading. And when I'm editing the story, I actually often choose a take where the content might not be exactly what you want to say, but the emotion is there and it's the person's feeling. And I think sometimes for non-professionals, it's hard to deliver an engaging delivery, while reading a teleprompter. But if there's a longer piece that just is not possible, I will definitely get you some apps. So I've got that written down.
I think we're good to carry on, Vince.
Okay, great. So let me get going here. So basically, like I mentioned, getting the camera out of your hand is, I think, critical. Once you're on a tripod and you're filming, whether you're filming a person presenting or landscapes, the rule of thirds is great to keep in mind. It's not always possible, and it's sometimes there to be broken. But basically, the rule of thirds is this here. You want to, throw a tic-tac-toe board across your image and put your points of interest on these 4 sections. It works both, the circles here represent where the composition improves, when you have that area of interest, but it also serves, these horizontals are also good to think about where to put a horizon in landscapes. So many times, people will put a person dead center in the image, where if they just threw them off to one side and tilted them a little bit into the middle, it's a much more engaging shot. So I'll throw up just one quick example. If you're presenting, we key into people's eyes when someone's speaking. So lining up an eye on that crosshair is really important. So, and this works actually for not just video, but for photographs. When you're taking photographs you're going to put on the web, think about using this rule of thirds and finding those points of interest, or even lines of action. Getting your eye to move around a bit is important. The height of the camera to your subject, I would say, it's subtle. It's used in media, and I think a lot of people don't totally know what's happening. It's going to be subtle because I'm right here next to my laptop, but basically, you try to get your subject at eye level. So right now I've got my lens as close as I can to my eye, so it's a fairly direct shot. But if I was to be filming what they'll often do if they want to make a person feel a little bit inferior or reduce their status, the camera goes up a little higher, sorry for the shake, and looks down on the person a little bit, and that diminishes a person and their credibility. If you want to make someone seem a little bit larger than life, I know these are exaggerations, but these angles do make a difference on interpretations. If I put the camera below me and I'm looking up, I'm a little bit, you've just raised my credibility a bit. So maybe you all want to try this trick when you're filming yourself, but I like this neutral stance unless you're really putting together a piece where you're trying to persuade folks. I typically try to stay straight on. I did mention the shot progression. Typically when you're filming, even filming scenics, if you're trying to stretch out a couple of shots, someone's talking about something for a while, get a wide shot, establish the entire lake, and then get a medium shot of closer along the shoreline of just a couple trees. And then if you want to get the close-up of, say, a couple waves crashing or leaves rustling in the trees, you want to set that stage with a wide shot, and then you can move in to show details. Typically what happens a lot is people stick with a medium, and medium cuts to medium cuts are a little jumpy because there's not much of a difference in the composition and they're not as engaging. So you'll see in the next video that I'll show from me, because I was on a selfie stick, I ended up with the medium. So one cut to the next cut, I actually flipped the image, and I played with it a little bit, but it's just be obvious of the composition, or be thoughtful of the composition as you're putting these together. And as you can remind yourself in your storyboard, make it very obvious that you want to start here or start there. To get into lighting, I'm actually just going to show you the middle part of my my how-to. Make sure I have everything minimized for this, and we'll go from here.
Another quick note is that it often helps to start every take with a bit of a smile. That way it looks like you're actually enjoying yourself and people are a little more engaged. Outdoor filming is actually fairly challenging on sunny days. So I'd first off say presenting in cloudy weather actually is much easier to film and much easier to get to look good. With blue sky days and being on camera, if you're facing the sun, you have to think about the sun being your light source, and if you're facing it, one, it's going to make a lot of people squint. It's going to make people sweat in the summer or create shiny spots and dark spots. I purposely filmed this early in the morning so that the light would be coming into my face a little bit more. What happens at noon, say, is that the sun is more directly overhead. I don't know if I can create it, but by tilting my head, you're getting much darker eyes, and it's just not as flattering with the bright shoulders. So basically, you've got a few options. Film earlier in the day or later in the evening, and if the presenter can talk into the sun, you can also actually spin around. It's not quite as often not quite as flattering of a background, but if you find a dark background, you can expose better for the face. Let's see if I can adjust the exposure. Can adjust a little bit better for my face, and the background isn't distracting, and I'm very comfortable and I'm not squinting. So you can play with different backgrounds and try to get the sun to work for you. Audio is challenging in every situation and with all equipment, but with an iPhone and no microphone, it's actually much more challenging. So in this scene, I wanted to show you all a little bit of the river behind me, as it might be something you were trying to demonstrate in some of your videos, but even this trickle is really out-competing my voice and is a little distracting. It's understandable because you can see the river back there, but it's louder. What I would say is get a little bit of distance from it and perhaps try to show a little bit more of the waterfall. This is just one example where I literally walked about 20 feet away. I can actually see more of the waterfall. My voice is much clearer and there's less competition from the waterfall. So sometimes getting a little bit of distance improves your audio as well as what's in the background. This is another option where you get the exact shot you want, and then you can add narration through a little voiceover tool on your computer and editing system later. This also allows you to adjust the background sound on the original clip, so it can be louder river or softer. Filming indoors is actually a lot easier because you don't have to worry about the weather, but you do need to consider the lighting again. I often turn off overhead lights, as it is just like the sun at noon, comes straight down on people's heads and creates a dark patch in their eyes, and it's just not a flattering light. So it's sometimes challenging when you guys don't have lights, but try to find a brighter room, and the phones are actually amazing. So the other challenge is a bright window in the room. So I've set this up here so that you can see how the camera can't expose from my face as well as the window. And to me, this doesn't look that great because it's completely blown out. But it just takes a few quick test shots and moving around. I'll give you a quick example of how this goes. Sorry for the whiplash. But just moving around, I'm actually using the light from the window to light my face a little bit better. The camera's exposing everything just fine, and I still have an interesting background. So just look out for windows, and I will also say that they're not all bad actually. So if you can find a dark window or one where the outside is not hit by the sun, it can actually turn into a really nice composition, and it can work for you.
Okay, I'm gonna keep moving. I think when you are filming, like I said, our minds are incredible filters, and we will get rid of the sound of a lawnmower kicking on or something. So try to be as conscious of your surroundings as you can, and try to identify if things do change while you're filming. And maybe lastly for this section, if you have this, you know, your 4 scenes set up, everyone gets more comfortable on camera as things progress. So I often will go back and ask the first question or the second question again to people because they have settled into more of a routine. So for this, I would say perhaps think about doing your introduction again. So 1, because if you are more relaxed, it'll match the rest of the piece. But 2, that opening intro is, you know, you could argue is one of the most important parts. So if it's your first take or your second take and you're still nervous, it's not going to be as good of a piece. So some people will actually start halfway through, do the piece, and then come back and do the beginning. I like to just have that second attempt at things if people have the time. It just makes people more comfortable. As far as filming scenics and supporting footage, some other suggestions are get those close-ups. You know, you can use them at any point in a piece. So, you know, again, it's you know, whether it's you're filming 2 people interacting, it's getting the person listening or nodding the head, it's getting you know, hands on a keyboard. All those little things will save you. If you don't get them in the first project, when you're editing, you'll realize you wish you had them, and you'll do it in the second piece. Always capture a little bit more supporting footage than you think you need, and do remember that rule of thirds for landscapes as well. What happens a lot when I'm capturing B-roll is that, you know, people, because you're not filming someone, they start talking. You've basically just lost your audio. If you're making noise, if someone you're with is there talking. So try to think about capturing, you know, your supporting footage that's both, you know, the visual and the audio. And remember the shot progressions. You know, if you're at a spot, don't just take one shot. You can take the wide and take the medium. You know, try to get people to reduce as much panning as possible if you need to. It does establish a nice scene. You can show a lot, but just go slower than you think. Or, excuse me, you can take 2 takes, one where you think you should be, and then take another one slower. And you'll find that if you have the time or a longer statement, you'll use that slower take. You know, obviously you can't really zoom with the iPhone. I try to get people to stay away from zooms in general, even with a DSLR. I just advocate for that wide shot, and then getting the medium shot to follow up. I'll stop there. Well, let me get into, well, let me stop there. And Ryan, are there any questions around camera work?
Yeah, just one, and you have addressed it a little bit so far. Amy just asked any other tips for putting people who are uncomfortable on camera, putting them at ease.
Yeah, I think getting the camera on a tripod and just having it be this inanimate object, and then allowing yourself to have a conversation. I mean, I never get straight into filming. I'd rather make a fool out of myself, as some of you have already seen, and put someone at ease and get a bit of a rapport before you get going. So I think you can also mention that there's going to be supporting footage, and that tell them that you're not going to be a talking head. We basically, we need to identify who's giving us this information, but we're going to try to get other shots after the fact. So that, hands down, people are very happy to hear that. But if you can find any commonality or crack a couple bad jokes at the beginning, it goes a long ways. And I think not having the camera and as much as you can, practice beforehand, understand the filming aspect, so you don't have to break your rapport with a person to troubleshoot something. If you can just literally get it on tripod, get it started, and then have this conversation. I do a lot of projects doc style where the person's talking off camera. So if it's literally right there, you tell them they don't have to look at the camera. They can talk to you or to someone you're working with. That goes a long ways.
Great, thanks, Vince. Let's move on to editing.
Great. Editing is often, like I've said, can be really time consuming, so I'm going to advocate for the storyboard again. PCs, there are a number of programs out there. I did a little research, and I've listed the 3 programs that are free, that are highly recommended, and have all the features at a basic level. You can see them in the list. It's Hit Film Express, VSDC, and then DaVinci Resolve. If you think you're going to progress on the PC side, DaVinci Resolve would be the program that has a big brother. So you'll learn those. You'll be able to carry those skills forward. Editing on an iPhone is incredibly intuitive using the app iMovie. There is a great tutorial which I've put down here. Again, not knowing the different ways people want to edit, I would actually, I guess, I hate to push people to it, but it's a 20-minute tutorial. It goes through every part of the process, whether you want to add text, change the music, add B-roll, split shots, trim shots, importing it. It's a really well put together piece. You can actually edit it, shoot it in the field. You can edit it on your phone. It's you think you couldn't do it with the real estate you have on your phone, but Apple's actually made it very intuitive and very user-friendly. Obviously, you could film with an iPad, and you'd have more real estate to edit with. And then you can actually use iMovie on a laptop as well to get more screen real estate. So let me just quickly open up let's see. Sorry, I didn't have this loaded. Editing programs are all fairly similar in that they're gonna have, I'm not sure if I'm gonna get it to load quickly enough. They're gonna have, sorry, my hard drive disconnected or went to sleep on me, but they basically have a window where all the clips live. And then they have a timeline at the bottom that you basically drag and drop your clips into, and then a viewer window where you can see exactly what is playing on your timeline. I can get more into that, but I think the programs are slightly different. I would say that the editing tutorial really actually, it's surprising. It surprised me how easy the newest iMovie is to use. So as far as things to think about while you're doing the edit, oftentimes while you're doing many different steps, keep your audience in mind. So that comes down to how you make decisions around music. That comes down to how fast you space out clips in between different people's comments. If you're wanting to reach or resonate with an older audience, a slower pace video often is what's recommended. So whether you're adding a little bit of a gap between a comment or stretching out a clip to last a little bit longer, just think about who's watching. People have told me, and actually I found that it works, is envision, if you know someone who is within your audience, picture them sitting next to you. And I know it sounds a little strange, but in the past I've thought of a particular person and how they would react while watching something, and just envisioning their reaction or how I would feel while they watch something next to me has really helped how I put together and edit. Try to get your timeline and footage onto 2 different drives. So iMovie has an option that's described in the tutorial on how to back up your timeline and your project. So keeping that, dumping it to your laptop or dumping it somewhere else is definitely suggested. Oftentimes when you're taping, say, you're not going to hit every scene, you're not going to get it done in one take. So instead of, you come back and you've got 4 clips of your 4 takes, what can save time is literally just going to the last take, watching that, because you usually move on once you you nail it. So don't spend the time watching those other clips at all. As I put together the story, I don't like to get into the music or the supporting footage or text until I've got my story done. Get through the audio part, lay that down, and then make sure that's reviewed, and you want to move ahead with that length of story, and then add all of your additional components. The iMovie tutorial also mentions using the narration or the voiceover tool. That's a great way to add that narration after the fact, and this can be done as a transition piece, or it can be done at the end of a project when you realize you didn't cover one particular component. So you can add that in, as long as the narration isn't just one statement. Once feels like a bit of a mistake, twice feels like a trend. So if you are needing to use that voiceover tool, make it a part of the piece. So I'd say what we're seeing a lot in editing of vlogs these days is jump cuts. So people will just give a tutorial and they literally just cut out the 3 seconds where they make a mistake, and you see a quick hiccup from the first comment to the second comment, and they just keep on rolling. And it's an obvious edit point, and they don't care, and we just want the information. So if you're just putting together something that doesn't have to be beautiful every time, that's an option. Literally just cut out pieces you don't need and let it keep moving. So I like to cover those up, and with B-roll, or if you're in the field, to just do a second attempt and make sure, bring home a complete take instead of bringing home 2 takes where the first half of the first one is good and the second half of the second one is good, and you're gonna combine them. You're gonna find there's continuity issues often, and it turns into more time editing than if you would have just tried it again in the field. Sometimes with that filming, moving on to another piece and then coming back to that, give yourself a little break. That often helps you get through it. Another tip with the editing is cut on the action. That the edit goes by a little less obviously. I mentioned the opening title. A couple additional tools to editing. First is stock footage. There's a lot of free footage out there. A lot of it is gorgeous. There's also many sites out there that you can buy footage, and it's beautiful footage. It's just not local. So when I've needed a bear shot that I didn't have, sometimes you got to scroll through a fair number of clips to get something that looks like our forest type here. So, but it is a great option, and I've listed some of those there. I guess we did talk a little bit about text on the screen. Let me just look through my notes. Yeah, text can be more than the opening title and people's names and positions. It can work, if you fade to black, or if you can put up text as a chapter heading, and that creates a transition for you that you didn't have before. And again, make that a trend. Put up 2 or 3 so that the audience, you know, they get that this is the plan. It also reinforces particular points that you want to make. Try not to use shots that have a lot going on or have a lot of action. It's just a little distracting when you're putting in text on a busy shot. Keep the fonts consistent so that it does look like there was a plan. And I think I might stop there briefly to see, Ryan, if there's any questions around the editing. Again, I'm sorry I didn't get into the specifics of moving clips around, but I think if folks are iMovie users, that tutorial will really help. And it, you know, I'm happy to answer any PC specific questions. I live in a Mac world, so I can do a little bit of research and answer any of those separately or later.
Hey, thanks, Vince. Just a couple of quick questions. One very equipment specific. Julie Silverman asked, how's the video quality with iPhone 6 Plus, or is the 8 the minimum?
I guess I'll have to do a little bit more research. I think it also depends on who you're showing us to and what you're trying to put together. If it's going to be blown up on your projector, I might suggest going to the 8. The phones have made some big leaps more recently, but even those older phones can handle the basics pretty well. So if you're, I always advocate for the most recent iteration, the best lenses. So I guess a short answer would be try to get a hold of a better camera, but if that's all you have, then some video is better than no video. So
great, thanks, Vince. One more. Sandy Bender asked, can you speak more about avoiding dissolves?
Oh yeah, and again, production value has come down. You know, that what we accept now is really low because of, you know, online YouTubers and the like. But, you know, in the business, it used to be, if you can't solve it, dissolve it. So if you can't get a nice clean cut, if you can't go from, you know, if you're stuck going from a medium to a medium, people will often do a dissolve to try to make it less jarring. So dissolves are just, and maybe this is just being too much of a perfectionist, but they can have some issues because they don't look as clean. And yeah, I guess maybe I'm just being too particular. It just makes for I think a better story if you don't include those dissolves, but sometimes they're necessary. So sorry, that's not the greatest answer.
No, that's okay. Thanks, Vince. Let's see, one more just came in. Not sure if you covered this, but what's the better platform for video sharing, YouTube or Vimeo? Parks currently uses Vimeo as recommended by our website developer, but certainly willing to switch.
Yeah, that's Vimeo. I use Vimeo for my business. It's a higher quality video. There's a lot better tools as far as analyzing analytics. YouTube is the second most popular browser. So I suggested YouTube because it'll increase your search engine optimization. It'll put your organization out there so much further through searches, through videos on YouTube than with Vimeo. Vimeo is making big strides. I'd say it's more professional oriented, you know, oriented towards the professional, but YouTube is used by the masses more than Vimeo is.
Great. Amy Overstreet asks, in your experience or opinion, what's the hardest part, editing or filming?
I think it's the filming, because I feel like in editing, you can always find some kind of solution. When you're filming and you're in a particular spot, you sometimes you just get one chance at it. So it comes down to troubleshooting, and it comes down to a lot of split-second decisions about whether you're going to put a person backlit and the light might not be quite right, or if you're going to ask them to stand facing the sun. So I think I think doing that organization up front makes the shooting easier. And I think being flexible and potentially, you know, getting to scout a location before you ask somebody to go there is helpful. Another thing I'll say is, as the audio, I would say actually hands down audio is the most challenging part. I know it wasn't one of the options, but I often abandon a better looking shot to get cleaner audio. I feel like people will suffer through bad video, but they won't suffer through bad audio. So if you need to go to a quieter spot, I would say go to the quieter spot, and you can either use B-roll to make it look better, or just be happy in the fact that you've got nice clean audio and people are going to get your message.
Great. One more question from Ashley. She says, you have given a lot of awesome tips. Thank you. In review, could you summarize the top 3 to 5 points or recommendations to make your video look professional versus homemade?
First step, and I know it's money, but I would advocate for getting a tripod and getting an on-camera microphone. So that way you're steadying your shot and you're getting good audio. From there, I would say going into the shoot with you know, not all of us, I know you're not all going to storyboard, and I don't always storyboard, but going into a shoot organized with some kind of thoughts beforehand is going to allow you to come home with better looking footage and more efficient comments or you know, better answers. So, you know, if you're asking, you know, I wouldn't advocate, if you're going to be interviewing someone, I don't always advocate for coming up with 10 questions and going through them point by point. I'm more of a person to say, these are the topics I want to discuss. These are the kind of the answers that I'm hoping to hear. Let's have a conversation. So let's just list a few bullets of what I want to go over with people. And that way it turns into more of a you know, a conversation with folks, instead of, you know, while they're answering, you're looking back down at the next question. So, and that's difficult because if you're doing a lot, that's why it's nice to have a second person to be able to ask the questions and have that relationship with someone. I would also say, think about the rule of thirds. I'd say, and your shot composition, you know, beauty. Someone told me beauty is one of the sharpest tools in the toolbox. So if you can create engaging visuals, you've gone a long way to hook people even before you get into the audio side. Check your shots too. After a couple, take the time to pause, you know, find a way to cover up your screen and just look at it to make sure you're capturing things. And that goes for audio as well. If you do have a chance to be with someone and you're interviewing someone or you're filming yourself, check that before you get home, because you might not realize how loud the lawnmower is or how loud the refrigerator is. So that wasn't too organized, Ashley, but I hope that helps.
No, I think that was, well, it was a good question to bring us to wrapping up. And I think a really good answer to kind of hit on the highlights of what you've talked about today. I see in your outline here, your last thing is distribution. You've touched a little bit on that. Is there anything more you wanted to speak to about that?
I guess I just back up once and a little bit and say the distribution is almost always from within your editing program. So whichever program you're going to use, with iMovie, you literally, once you're happy with it, you're going to watch the piece through to double check. And then there's a done button, and then it gives you options on how to share. So I would say look for that share button. And what these programs do is they upload it directly to your YouTube channel or directly to your Facebook. So so if you're worried about getting a piece out or how you do it, the programs are going to make it easy, and you can dial it in very specifically. And from getting it on your YouTube, you can then share those links to other organizations. I would say, I'd actually say, you know, I think it was Amy said that the hardest step is distribution, because, you know, we have so many channels and ways to watch media. There's so much out there. It's hard to get people to know that your piece is out there. So using your members in an organization to share it with them and ask them to share it. That was the piece from Jim Andrews that I cut off, but he asked people, once they donated, share this video with someone else. So come up with a plan on how to leverage the distribution. And identify who would be interested and whether there's partner organizations that might be interested in just at least posting a quick post on Facebook or Instagram. Try to get as many people to share it as possible. So, but if there's more specifics around sharing, getting your video uploaded, if you're running into a specific program that has issues, you can actually often Google it, and it'll give you a tutorial on how to get your piece out in a certain way. So, but I'm also happy to answer questions later about that in the subsequent workshops.
Great, thanks, Vince. We don't have any more questions at this point, and it's about 3 o'clock, so I think we'll wrap up. Vince, thanks really so much. This has been great. It's definitely giving me a even greater appreciation for all the work you do and all that goes into it. Just so many things to consider when you're out there in the field. It really does seem like it can be overwhelming, but I think you've done a great job of breaking it down and hitting on the highlights. And thanks also to all of you for joining us today and for all the good questions you had for Vince. Going forward, I'll get invitations out for the follow Q&A sessions for everybody. And I think that format will be a little bit different. We'll probably use a traditional Zoom meeting so that there's a little more face-to-face and interaction as folks have an opportunity to check in and ask specific questions about their work. Vince, do you have any other closing thoughts?
I would say I'm happy to, in these subsequent workshops, happy to look at footage or happy to, look at a quick edit that someone has done. I personally really have a hard time sharing pieces that aren't done, but I think if you can, that feedback is going to both help you put together a much better piece, and I think it's also going to help anyone else in that particular workshop kind of see how things are going and see what could be done better. So, so please feel free to share in these future workshops or put something together so that we can see and we can improve from there. So thank you all. I'm sorry. I hope this helped everyone, and I look forward to answering any of the questions in the next workshops.
Yeah, we're getting great feedback. So thanks, Vince. Look forward to seeing everybody soon. Take care.
See ya.